1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay, we can start the question session. Okay.
So, okay. So last night I was watching a Noam Chomsky interview, and he was talking as usual about the state of the world.
Yeah.
And after I watched him, I came to this sudden awareness realization that between climate change and nuclear weapons, annihilation of sentient beings on this planet is a strong probability, if not inevitable.
Yeah.
And I'm asking this question, this light little question, how would the elimination of sentient life on the planet affect rebirth in the Buddha's teachings?
Yeah, first, it's a problem not really so well dealt with within the texts themselves, but what I would say is that there are many other planes of existence. So if life should be exterminated on planet Earth, the living forms, the lines of consciousness will just migrate to some other realm of existence.
So the Buddha often talks about the human existence as having special opportunities for gaining enlightenment.
Yeah.
So is it are we saying possibly there's human life other places, or would it be different forms of life?
As far as we know, human life is confined to the earth, and the other planes of existence are different types of life. So the other realms are either the higher realms, like the heavenly realms, or the lower realms. All the animals might also be eliminated from the earth. So animal realm, this Preta realm, the realm of afflicted spirits, and the hell realms. But also, it's very probable, since scientists have discovered billions of galaxies, each galaxy having billions of stars, that there are planets with intelligent life form there. The general rule, so far as there have been any records, empirical studies of how rebirth takes place, is that the tendency is to be reborn close to the place where one passed away. This is in the case of children who have memories of their previous life that sometimes occur spontaneously. And then when they track where they lived previously, it's almost always very close to the place where they're living now. So the prospect of human beings passing away from Earth and taking rebirth on a galaxy millions of light years away seems very, very slim. But who knows, there are just so many different possibilities and dimensions of existence.
Okay, thank you.
But I'm sure that, I'm confident that as long as the stream of consciousness is not yet enlightened, the rebirth is going to take place someplace.
I just have a very quick question about the Dharma. You say where turning king arises also at a time when the Buddha is not existing.
Yeah.
But you use the capital D in the translation, so that the Dharma doesn't refer to the Buddha's Dharma.
Yeah.
Even it's
this is just my own, it's just the convention in English.
Oh, okay. But whenever we are turning king go to ask the practitioner, and the practitioner, they strive to end the craving, that means that's the time when there is the Buddha Dhamma, right? I mean, when we are turning king goes to ask ascetics and brahmas,
Yeah.
and those people are people who try to calm themselves,
I see.
and they strive for the
Yeah.
end of craving too. So that means there is the Buddha Dhamma, right?
No, I don't think
No?
that's necessarily the case, because the idea seems to be that during periods when the Buddha doesn't exist, when the Buddha's teaching is not available, there'll still be the tradition of people going into homelessness and leading ascetic lives of meditation. So they might not have, if the Buddha's teaching is not around, they won't have the idea of Nibbana, the way it's taught in the Buddha Dharma, the permanent extinction of greed, hatred, and delusion. But still they'll have the idea that it's good to restrain craving and desire and clinging, and to train the mind in order to achieve either the jhanas, the formless meditations, the Brahma Viharas, in order to be reborn in the higher realms. Yeah, so there'll be ascetics who are practicing within that mode. Do you get the point?
Yeah. But when, like nowadays, the Buddha has passed away, but there's still Buddha Dhamma, do we consider this time as a time there is no Buddha, or there is a Buddha?
Now this is because the Buddha's, even though the Buddha has passed away, but because the Buddha Dhamma still survives. So this is considered the time when the Buddha Dhamma still exists in the world.
Where turning king could arise in a time when there is a Buddha Dhamma, and also arise in a time when there is no Buddha Dhamma.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
What Dhamma would he be following at the point? There is no Dhamma in the world.
Yeah, but there's still what is said to be taught repeatedly in the world, whether or not the Buddha has arisen, would be the Dhamma of observing the 10 courses of wholesome karma, of going forth into homelessness in order to lead the ascetic life, the practicing of meditation, different types of meditation, particularly the 8 meditative attainments, the jhanas, and the 4 formless meditations, and the 4 Brahma Viharas. So those are still considered to be, those are considered not to be absolutely dependent on the Buddha's teaching, but that is part of, we call it the perennial contemplative tradition.
And Bhante, going back to the sutta from the Majjhima Nikaya, it seems like that, there are 5 different audiences that the Buddha spoke to, whether it was kings or bhikkhus or so on and so forth. But this doesn't seem to be like a topic that the Buddha would address to bhikkhus, in that, why would he be talking about, women, wholesome, or these wonderful women to bhikkhus and things like that? I mean, I'm just curious.
I have to admit, it's a bit...
It's a head scratcher, wow.
Here I am, I've gone forth into homelessness under the renouncing home and family, striving in this little forest cottage for meditation. Now I come to hear the Buddha preach. He's telling me about
wonderful women we've given up.
woman whose limbs are cool in the hot weather and warm in the cold season.
I'm just curious because, I mean, it seems like this would be more appropriate if he was talking to a Raj or whoever, something like that, to that effect.
Yeah, I mean, it's a question, yeah.
Okay.
But wasn't that part of the Raja Chakravarti? The elephants, horses,
Yeah,
treasures, women, all that was part of the king, what
Yeah.
the king would get, right?
yeah, that's what I said, yeah. No, but he's just
The
asking,
women is for the king, not for the Arahants.
no, but he's asking, why would the Buddha preach on this, a topic like this? Why would he direct the discourse like this to monks? Yeah, I don't know the answer.
Bhante, excuse me. Bhante, in your discourse you mentioned that wherever there is righteousness and so on, there will always be favorable circumstances. So going back to, let's say for instance, going back to in Tibet, where I'm supposing that the country was peaceful, there was a lot of dharma activities,
Yeah.
and yet there was a cultural revolution, yet there was massacre of
Yeah.
thousands of people.
Yeah, yeah.
How would you explain that?
What did you think I said? That when there's righteousness, there'll always be peace?
I thought that when there is righteousness,
Yeah.
then the circumstances during that time would be favorable. There would be peace. There would be no war, things like that.
I don't know whether I said that.
In the
I'd have to listen to my whole recording, which I won't do. But I wouldn't. In my mind, I wouldn't consider a statement like that correct, because people who are living virtuous, upright, wholesome lives, there's been tragedies throughout history. And so how does one explain that?
yes, Bhante, that's
Certainly not on the basis of their present conduct. Not only Tibet, I mean, Cambodian people were living quite simple, I guess more or less virtuous lives till, what was this, 1968, 69, when the US decided to, because the North Vietnamese were using parts of Cambodia as a trail to get into South Vietnam, then the US started to bomb Cambodia, and then they replaced the legitimate government with the puppet government, and then people, or one group overthrew the puppet government, and then the Khmer Rouge came into power and exterminated 2 million people. And then the Jews in Germany were living generally quite good lives, and they were 6 million. So I don't think I would say that when people are living righteous lives that they're automatically going to be protected, guarded against harm and suffering. I must have said something else which you interpreted in that way.
So, Bhante, then for common people like us, when we see that, then there is loss of faith, loss of into things like that, or trust into something good.
Yeah. I think sort of the basis of my own faith is that when one behaves righteously, does wholesome deeds, first of all, it's protecting one's own mind, which is the most important thing. And then also, I'd say the faith is that it's creating wholesome karma, which is going to provide a kind of protective force for one in the future. But probably if we look at this in terms of the long-term cosmic aeons of creating karma, aeon after aeon, we've probably all created so much unwholesome karma that is capable of producing its effect sometime in the present or the future, that we can never escape the results of that karma. So even somebody like, at an individual level, the Buddha's chief disciple, Mahamoggallana, who had the foremost in psychic powers, but he was assassinated because, according to the story, many cosmic aeons ago, he had murdered his own parents, and so that created unwholesome karma. And between that time and his last life, he sort of came into the stream of the Buddha Dharma. He must have fulfilled meritorious deeds and paramitas over many, many millions of lives to become the Buddha's chief disciple. But that karma caught up with him. Yeah.
From what I understand the question my friend had, I think you mentioned that if the country is being ruled under Dhamma Chakravarti or whatever, normally there will not be an internal agitation to change the government. I think that's what you.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, that's
that
what
I
you're
would
saying.
say that.
Yeah, yeah.
It's supposedly under the rule of the Chakravarti Raja.
Yeah.
The people, he rolls the wheel to the other continents,
yeah.
and then they come under, they submit to the wheel-turning monarch.
But also, Bhante, in a situation like that, even unless everyone is living in a righteous life,
Yeah.
if there are exceptions and there are outside interference,
Yeah.
those rules may not hold. I mean,
Yeah.
there'll be always exceptional, people who want to agitate and create problems, and then overthrow governments too.
But also in Tibet in this time, there is no wheel-turning king, so it's not like the Dhamma was ruling the day.
No, he's just saying that people in Tibet back, before the Chinese communists came in,
Right.
were leading, simple, righteous lives, and yet they fell under the control of the communists.
But again, there isn't Dhamma prevailing in all lands at this point. China obviously was very communist and imperialistic in its own way at that point. So it's not like Dhamma was ruling China. It might have been ruling Tibet at that time, but not China, definitely.
It's actually twofold. The first one is if this Raja, the desire to rule over people, would that imply a very ego that is not consistent with a bodhisattva who is looking to become a Buddha? You mentioned that the Buddha had been a Raja Chakravarti in past lives. But would it not imply a certain ego, your desire to rule over people?
No, because the wheel-turning monarch is considered to be one. Well, first of all, within the conception of the wheel-turning monarch, he's a monarch, and so he inherits the kingship from his own father. It's not that he is a commoner who pushes himself up to the throne, but kingship is just comes to him through natural descent. That's the first point. And the second point is that the wheel-turning monarch wishes to rule not for his own self-aggrandizement, but in order to benefit the population and to establish peace and prosperity in the world.
I see.
That's his aspiration.
Just one more from that. This may be a very foolish question. Could Buddha have been making any kind of reference to the Raja Chakravarti being a very a personal thing in a personal space, meaning that it is not a literal monarch?
That is not the what?
That it is not literally a king, but that the Raja Chakravarti somehow it somehow can be in people's personal lives, that is something that personally we can strive for? Could he have been implying that rather than an actual king? It's just that in the modern world, I just find it so hard to visualize someone as benevolent as a Raja Chakravarti.
Yeah, two things. First, certainly the way the texts are always described, the wheel-turning monarch, he's definitely a king. It's not a metaphor for a way a person leads their personal life. And the second comment is that usually kingships are full of corruption, ambition, internal dissension, even murder. But it seems what the Buddha is doing in sort of, well, at least the Buddha's texts are doing in establishing the concept of the wheel-turning monarch is establishing or sketching an ideal for kingship, so that those who, following Buddhism, who do get into the position of king, will have a model to emulate, rather than just follow their own ambitions and attachment to power and their own arbitrary exercise of will. They'll see that to really legitimate their rule, they have to rule in accordance with a higher law. And as a result of this, I would say, of course, in the histories of all the Buddhist countries, there's a lot of imperfection, but that ideal of the wheel-turning monarch has at least provided a kind of guidepost for Buddhist kings to try to follow. And there have been some, I know, from the edicts of the Sri Lankan kings and the records of their rule, who did try to follow the example of the wheel-turning monarch. And maybe King Ashoka is like the closest that we know of historically. $7,500 years?
Well, I mean, going back to even pre-Buddhist times, there hasn't been anything remotely close to what we would consider a wheel-turning monarch. And again, it seems like, I mean, you just said no, but it seems like it is a metaphor for the Dhamma itself, that this ideal of the Dhamma, if we embrace it wholeheartedly, it kind of protects us, and there's nothing that can, it is kind of the ultimate rule in our lives, I guess.
I think if that was just the Buddha's intention, he would have had other ways to express that.
Right.
I mean, definitely he's going beyond that and setting up what I would call an ideal of kingship. It doesn't mean that there has to have been, or even that there will be at some time, kings that fully exemplify that standard. But it's just, you could take it as a legendary figure, but it's setting up certain like ideal qualities that a king should embody.
I think Obama is looking to ascend to these ideals. Anybody?
Yeah, first we have to find that elephant. Let's see, I can get on my elephant at 6 o'clock in the morning, go around the world and come back just when the gong goes off up the hill, 6:20, 6:30, gong, 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 gong. Get the landing place prepared for that elephant. It's a bird, it's a plane, it's Superman. No. It's Bhante riding his elephant. Yes?
Bhante, do you know that wheel-turning monarch is an alien with a spaceship going before him?
Is what?
An alien
Yeah.
with a spaceship going before him, so whenever there is spaceship leading him going to the east and going to the west, and here comes the wheel-turning monarch.
Yeah, maybe.
Flying saucer goes in circles.
Yeah, it's like a flying saucer, yeah.
And he can go around the earth in 20
Yeah,
minutes.
yeah.
It can go around.
Yeah.
Let's
That's what I was told.
That it was an alien from another planet. Maybe so. Anyway, we have to get that elephant, then I can get to Buffalo in about 2 minutes.
You're gonna have to ride around in a Mini Cooper.
Don't even have to worry about that Italian restaurant overcharging.
Like you said, Bhante, Emperor Ashoka, and I think there have been some kings in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
And in this country, because these guidelines have been there, they have always tried to emulate this, I think.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Of course, there have been wars and other things.
Yeah, that's what I said, yeah.
But very often, after they establish authority, they
Yeah.
have tried to live by this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, like even Emperor Ashoka, he was Chandasoka originally, and later
Yeah.
he became Dhammasoka.
Yeah.
So, once these guidelines are used, they try to have a very compassionate,
Yeah, exactly, that's what I said, yeah, yeah.
especially in the Buddhist kingdoms.
Yeah, that's, yeah. Any further questions, comments? Okay, then I think we could call it an end for today. Just a few little announcements. Tomorrow here is the Buddha's birthday celebration. So we have the special function of everybody gets the opportunity to bathe the newborn Buddha. Very nice, beautiful ceremony. There'll be, by the altar, outside altars will be set up with, generally I think that there are 5 little Buddha statues in a bowl of scented water, and then everybody lines up and has the chance to pour the fragrant waters over the newborn Buddha. And then, so that's the morning, followed by, you call it Asian lunch. What's the garden lunch? And then this is because tomorrow is also Mother's Day, so it combines Buddha's birthday celebration with Mother's Day celebration. Then after lunch there will be the cultural show, cultural exposition. So you get a chance to see some of the finest Chinese martial artists, magician, Oriental dancing.
Can we do this before I take my precepts?
So many different entertainments. So please, you're welcome to come for a very enjoyable day. Culturally enriching, spiritually uplifting, culturally enriching, and gastronomically fulfilling day. Okay, that's one announcement. Second announcement, next week we won't have a class because I have to be in Washington, D.C. that day. So, yeah, you know, I was appointed the wheel-turning man. No, that's just a joke, but I won't be here. So the next class will be the 23rd. That's May 23rd.
Okay, just so you know, that's Memorial Day, that weekend. So,
Is that considered a bad day then?
well, for people, traffic, I'm just letting you know.
Oh.
Might be low attendance that day.
Oh, let me reconsider then.
Well,
What is that?
No, they're talking about the 25th is Memorial Day, so that whole weekend is busy, but he's already back, so.
yeah, but I'm saying it might be light attendance, just so you know.
People go away.
Okay, so let us, but then I think the following weekend, then I'm not here on Saturday. So then the next one will probably be June 3rd. Oh, 6th, I'm sorry, June 6th. Yeah. Okay, but this month gets to be a little busy, but after June 6th, I think I could be constant in the Saturday class up till not till June 7th. We have the summer camp, the July 4th weekend summer camp.
The calendar, your calendar only goes up to about June, so they would have to revise that.
My class schedule.
Yes.
Yeah, I put up a new one at the late June when I see what things will look like. But I don't want to go out in July, August. I'll refuse all invitations during that time. So we could have the class consistently then.
And then at the end of August is the Abhidhamma retreat.
Yeah, that's very necessary.
What will you be doing in Washington?
Trying to get arrested again.
I won't be. No, they're having what they call a Buddhist leader. Oh, Henry isn't here. He's going. A Buddhist leaders gathering in Washington on, that will be the 14th. See, the 4th, that's the Buddhist. And then part of that is going to be at the White House, which means we don't, you see, when we say the White House, it's not the real White House, but right next to the White House, across the street, there's what they call the Executive Offices Building. I think the meeting is going to be in the Executive Offices Building. And the focus is supposed to be on bringing the Buddhist leaders together around the issue of climate change. Okay, and then May 17th, they invited me to speak. They're having an international Vesak celebration in Washington, so I'm supposed to speak at that. Okay. And then there's a Buddhist magazine is called Inquiring Mind. I've been writing columns, it used to come out twice annually. So I've been writing columns for that. I have some issues here. Anybody wishes, they can take. There are 2 different issues, but if you take one, just take one so that other people will get a chance to take one. So we'll just make them available. Okay, so let us end with the 3 bows to the Buddha.